You're with the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for staying with us. Think about what you're wearing at the moment and try to remember, if you can, what's on the care tag for your top or your dress or your pants, whatever it might be. Do you know offhand what material or materials your outfit is made from? What about how you're supposed to wash it? Is it dry clean only? Are you supposed to line dry it, or can you finish it in your dryer on tumble dry low? I know we've all seen those words. You might not know the answers to all of these questions off the top of your head, but they make a big difference to our environment and our health. If you did know more about what you were wearing, how it's produced, what it takes to keep it clean, and what can happen to it when you're done with it, you just might make different choices when it comes to your wardrobe. Today, we'll learn about the environmental impact of the fashion industry with experts from different corners of this world who are trying to change it for the better. With us in studio, we have Dr. Gargi Bhaduri, Associate Professor at the Kent State University School of Fashion. Gargi has her PhD in Human Environmental Sciences with an emphasis on textile and apparel management. Gargi, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Also with us in studio, we have Lisa Goldsand, founder of Circular Thrift. Lisa started this company focused on circularity, which we'll learn more about, after more than 30 years in the linear global fashion production industry. Lisa, thanks for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Also calling in on video today, we have Gail Baugh, author of The Fashion Designer's Textile Directory. Gail has extensive fashion industry experience in global product development and sourcing, and is now a researcher and educator in this field. Gail, welcome to the Sound of Ideas.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, if you would like to join this conversation, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org, or you can message us on Instagram. We're at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Gail, a lot of conversations about harms in the fashion industry practices refer generally using the terms fast fashion. Another term I've been hearing to describe the opposite of harmful practices is slow fashion. Now, you've shared with me how important using the right terminology is here from a scientific perspective. So can you break down for us, as we talk about this today, why it's important to use terms like fashion industry and fashion production and not just the word fashion?
Well, part of the reason is socially we trivialize the apparel industry, the textile and apparel industry, because it is fashionable. And we tend to flick it off as, oh, isn't that wonderful? Let's see what's next. What we don't seem to understand as a society is that the fiber and textile industry and apparel products industries are the second largest on the planet. They're a major employer of people around the world, but they also have a significant impact on the use of water and the production of CO2 for energy. So if we're able to think about the industry as an industry like the automobile industry or the steel industry, think of it that way instead of just something we put on our bodies and throw away. It changes your thinking about how we should look at a significant industry, global industry. So instead of saying just fashion, fashion apparel, fashion designer, fashion business, it changes your thinking about how we look at this significant global industry.
Gives us some more specificity into what it is we're actually talking about.
Correct.
Now,
Correct.
Lisa, you worked for decades in linear global fashion production, and your company now has a circular model. So can you explain to us what that means?
Yes, of course. So I worked for several large global fashion brands over a 30-year period. So basically, I'm responsible for having helped to develop, produce, and deliver a whole bunch of product that's now in landfills. So to some degree, maybe I'm doing penance for this next chapter of my career. But Circular Thrift is essentially a community response to a global problem. So I am really interested in offering, let's maybe stop calling it the consumer, the citizen, our neighbor, humans, a way to take agency and have the opportunity to revisit their relationship with consumption. And so what that really means is I organize community clothing exchanges and mending workshops, which I think should be normal and recurring in every neighborhood in the US. And so through those efforts, people are able to buy less new stuff, build community, form friendships, and in a very positive, safe, inclusive environment, essentially a social gathering, reevaluate their relationship with consumption and hopefully walk away with a different thought about how they spend their time to make themselves happy.
And what the end of a life cycle of something looks like, how it can actually circle around and do something else. Is that a piece of it?
Absolutely. If we can keep what we've bought and put in our closets in circulation in a hyper local way for as long as possible, I think that is a significant way to reduce the impact of global fashion production on the environment.
And Gargi, can you tell us a bit about the focus of your research?
So, with the PhD that I did, one of my core focus was also understanding communication and mass communication and strategic communication. And in doing so, I realized that a lot of information about this fashion industry actually doesn't pass on between the producers and the consumers and different parts of the supply chain or the value chain, as we call it. So my understanding and my take on it is how do we empower every member of this process of this industry in making educated choices? Because sometimes we make choices just because we don't know what the alternate would have been. So that's what I focus on more, helping my students as well as community members and citizens and brands to make more educated decisions by understanding that we are a part of a bigger system and thus a bigger problem.
If anyone is just joining us here on The Sound of Ideas, we're talking about the fashion industry and how you can curate an excellent wardrobe, but also do a little less harm to the environment with some information that maybe you didn't know about. If you want to join this conversation, the number is 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org, or you can send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. And when we talk about the information that's available to people, Gargi, people can get a lot of information about the clothes that they own or are considering buying by just looking at the care tag. And fiber content is one of those things. Why is fiber content important for people to know?
First thing is, fiber content tells us a lot on what you are comfortable wearing. So like growing up, I grew up in India. I never wore anything that is I never worn anything other than cotton or silk because those were natural fibers. I grew up in a very humid environment and those helped me keep cool. But there are certain things that can be polyester or other fibers, and then there are blends. Fiber contents help us understand what's good on our skin, but also how do we take care of it and what the purpose of it at the end of the usable life. So once you're done with it, what can or where can it go? So those are certain things. For example, cotton, it might be biodegradable to a certain extent, but if it's a blend between cotton, polyester, and spandex, then it's almost impossible to shred it apart, like put it apart, so it ultimately goes to landfill.
Because those things can't ultimately be recycled.
So cotton can be biodegrade in a different way. Polyester is a man-made fiber or a manufactured fiber, as we say. So it has to melt, and then spandex and other things, whatever is in the blend, can go to a different stream. So by blending them together at a fiber stage, it's really hard to separate them, and it's almost destined to be in a landfill at this point with the resources and the facilities that we have currently.
So I did check the care label on my top and my skirt, which I'm wearing today before this show started. Gail, I want to bring you into the conversation on this piece. So my outfit, both of the pieces from my outfit are made in China. My skirt is 95% polyester and 5% spandex. My top is 50-50 acrylic and rayon. It does give me the information that the label was made from 100% recycled plastic, which is a very small piece of real estate on this top. So I was very curious. When I initially read it, I thought, oh, my top is made from 100% recycled plastic. And then I looked closer and it says label made from 100% recycled plastic. So that was an interesting piece of information that I did learn. So Gail, what can you tell me about those different materials and materials in general that we know can't be recycled?
Well, first of all, when I talk about your top, it's acrylic and what else?
Rayon.
Okay, both are manufactured fibers. Acrylic should never be used on anything at all. It is banned in this country to manufacture because it off-gasses acrylonitrile, which is a very harmful atmospheric gas. So we only produce it in other countries because we've banned the production of it here. Rayon is actually a pretty decent manufactured fiber and is very cool. So in hot climate, it absorbs moisture and slowly evaporates. So you stay cooler longer when you wear rayon. But in terms of that particular blend, it's impossible to recycle. At this point, there's no way to recycle acrylic. It is possible to recycle certain types of rayon. On your skirt, it's polyester, spandex, and tell me what else?
It is 95% polyester, 5% spandex.
If you use anything in an elastic fiber a generic fiber called spandex, it is not recyclable, period. So may feel comfortable, and we're currently in a place where we're sort of reevaluating silhouette in the design world. So instead of wearing very tight clothing, we're starting to see a relaxation of the silhouette. But I notice the spandex is still there, even though it has no function. So for manufacturers, the use of spandex is a great way to make it possible to do fit easier. You don't have to be quite so careful about how you fit the body because the spandex kind of covers a lot of squishiness.
It is a flowy skirt, it is tight at the top. So that is a good, I guess maybe that the top piece is maybe where the spandex comes into play in this particular outfit. But Garby, let me ask you, if we know that mixed materials can't be recycled, why are companies still using them?
Because they fit and feel and fall in a certain way, and because the fashion industry is so much into vanity and how we feel and how we like to look and trends. I necessarily do not like to point fingers at one party or the other. I think we are all a part of the problem. We as consumers ask and seek for certain things, and businesses push trends and manufacture the things that we seek out for. But I think majority of it has to do with the trends that we have, and we like to feel and look in a certain way, and the fashion industry is really dependent on that.
Lisa,
I
please.
want to jump in and just say, first of all, I love the question that you're asking and the vulnerability associated with, here I am, this is what's in my clothing, tell me how to think about it and how to interpret it. And I think consumers, people, humans, citizens, once armed with more information, like the conversation that we're having now, I think that they will ask brands to offer them different products. So if the technology doesn't yet exist to recycle in a closed loop fiber to fiber textile recycling process, the fabrics that are being produced, maybe the brands will respond if consumers are asking them to offer them products that do have an end of life solution. And then the last thing I want to say is, we need to joyfully wear whatever already exists, whatever has been produced and put in our closets, regardless of who made it, regardless of what the brand is, regardless of what it consists of. That is the most sustainable thing to do for the foreseeable future, is just to find a way to adorn ourselves in a way that we're proud of with the clothing that's already been produced. And you look lovely, so you're doing a great job with that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll be taking good care of this shirt for the rest of my life and this skirt. And maybe somebody after me will too, because apparently it's going to be here for a very long time. So we have an email now from Leo in Akron. Leo writes, has the panel heard of a company called Simple Recycling? They collect worn clothing, shoes, pillows, bedding, curtains, etc., and then salvage the materials, thus keeping the material out of the landfill, and they pick the material up from your house. So Leo is here in Akron. I'm assuming this is a local organization. Whether or not we may be aware of it specifically, that company is called Simple Recycling. But it does bring me to a question for you, Lisa. Your goal with circular thrift is to make it easier for people to consume less things. How are you doing that? How are you trying to keep things from ending up in landfills?
So how I'm doing that is I am inviting consumers, ideally consumers who can afford to buy new, because those are the consumers who are buying new things and continuing to keep that 100 billion garment annual production number where it is, to attend events that are focused on exchanges. And so the idea is, instead of having a boozy lunch with your friend and ending up at the mall buying something that you maybe are only buying because that's where you are, not because you need it, not because you intentionally decided this is a product that I need to purchase, maybe you're showing up at a community exchange where you're still seeing your friends, you're still part of the community that you have chosen to live in, but you're also finding a way to upgrade your wardrobe without doing environmental harm. And I think that the idea of a hyperlocal exchange is really compelling because it's inclusive, it's easy, it's, carbon neutral, certainly, and it's very likely that people in the same neighborhood enjoy the same brands, probably the same silhouettes, probably the same color palettes. We know we all buy more things than we need. We know we're only wearing things about 7 times before we're finished with them. So the reason why a clothing exchange is a really great way to keep things in circulation and out of landfill is there's a pretty good chance that your neighbor likes and could use something that you bought and that just doesn't seem to make it into circulation in your own wardrobe.
That 7 times number is just wild. Don't tell that to my sweatpants. Those get worn more than 7 times, for sure. Now, Gail, you're joining us from California, which I haven't thanked you yet for joining us so early today, so thank you very much for that. Something that we're seeing being put into practice in California is a concept called extended producer responsibility. So can you explain that to us?
So it was the beginning. EPR is actually a way to define how producers should take responsibility for what they produce and sell after the consumer is done with it. We know that the garbage collectors are not capable of really sorting and knowing what to do with textile products in particular. So I'm going to stay focused on EPR from the point of view of the textile and apparel industries. What we've learned over time is this concept. By the way, it also includes batteries and carpet and many, many, many industries. And we're looking at various types of plastic bags. We're looking at a variety of products, but to stay focused on the textile industry, because it is the second largest product that ends up in landfill, it's a significant number to understand and to figure out how to keep it out of landfill. So we've moved on from EPR, and it is a part of it, to a law called SB 707, which is the Textile Recovery Act of 2024, which is the first in the nation to actually tackle the issue of producer responsibility for the textile products that are produced globally. And it's focused on whatever is produced and or sold in the state of California. So that gives you an idea of the scale of it. And I'll stop there. So if you need me to explain more, I'm happy to do so. But is that a good start?
That is an excellent start. Thank you so much, Gail. I know we do not have a law like that here in Ohio. I'll ask you a quick follow-up on this, Gail. I do think that there are several states that are picking up this effort. Any idea how much momentum it's getting?
Yes, Oregon and state of Washington are looking at it right now. I expect them to, they're using a very similar plan as SB 707. So they will definitely, in the next year or so, 2 years, probably pass something similar. It's not a law that can go into effect the next year. This law will not go into effect until 2030. But in the meantime, if anybody's here producing it and selling in the state of California, and your sales volume is $1 million or less, you need to register with landbellusa.com by July 1st. That's the first hurdle that everybody has to do. New York is looking at it, and the EU is watching very carefully. They're ahead of us in many, many ways.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that for sure. We have an email now in from Joel in Akron. Joel writes, I've used a clothing rental company in the past. Are those sustainable, or does the constant shipping of items and the company's fashion turnover have the same issues as buying fast fashion apparel? Gargi, I'll ask you to speak to this.
Joel already answered the question. Yes, it is sustainable that you are not buying anything that is a new manufacture, but of course the shipping and the reshipping back and cleaning of it can involve certain implications and certain burden on the art. So that's something we have to think about. If you're thinking about rental, like Lisa was saying, a closer proximity, borrowing, from your friends and your neighbors who are in the closer proximity would have lesser footprint. So that's something to consider in future.
I totally agree with that,
Can I
Gargi.
just say-
Oh, yep.
Yeah, it's Gail. Can I just say something about this whole concept that we're talking about today?
Please.
We tend to think of our customers as feeling guilty because they buy something new. I think we need to redefine what we mean by new. It's new to you, not necessarily new to the market. So I just want to create that idea that we need to redefine how we think of new production as opposed to just new to me.
Thank
Yeah.
you for that, Gail. I appreciate that.
That's a really important point.
It is.
I do think, though, that if a consumer is struggling with whether to go procure something that they're going to keep for an event that may be an occasion versus something that's going to recur, the resources involved to produce the fiber and to produce the fabric, just the fabric, is 65 to 70% of all of the resources of that product. So it's still better, I would wager, to rent something, even if you're having it shipped to you, even if, yes, you're considering that there is a carbon footprint that's associated with getting it to you, getting it back to the renter, getting it cleaned. That's still better net impact on the environment than just going to the mall and buying something brand new.
Okay. We got an email question in, and this may be the last question that we have. We just have a couple minutes here. And Gail, I'm going to ask you to talk about this question. Andre in Solon is asking about washing machines and microfibers that are bad for the environment and what we need to be aware of in that regard. Can you tell us about that, Gail?
Sure. It's microfiber is basically everything that you feel that's really soft, that's polyester. Those are short fibers, as opposed to something that's shiny, that's polyester, like a athletic garment. Those are filament fibers, and they are less likely to break off and be in the environment. So we're talking about all the soft fibers that are the ones that are ending up everywhere. So washing, number one, you don't use hot water. Use cold water and keep it out of the dryer. Line dry. That's number one. Number two, if you can, you put it in a bag, a washing bag that's in the washing machine, because the fibers will shed and they'll go down through the water system and they'll end up in the settling tanks in our water treatment plants. But because they don't absorb water, they tend to float at the surface. So the usual methods of water purification before it goes out of the sewage system is unable to manage all the microfiber that is coming out of our washing machines. So the best thing you can do is cold water wash, line dry, keep it out of the dryer, and otherwise it aerates into the air from your dryer exhaust.
All right, we have time for one more question. We have about a minute here. Tiffany and Medina, welcome to the Sound of Ideas. Please go ahead.
Thanks. I am a first-time mom, and I'm considering cloth diapering primarily for the sustainability reasons. So I was just wondering if the panel had any, recommendations on the best way to do that.
I'm going to start off. Congratulations on being a mother, and then it's a big decision, and it is some work that will involve in cloth diapering. But yes, diapers are actually really harmful for the environment. There's little to zero ways that we reuse or recycle them. So cloth diapering definitely helps, but also keep the burden in your mind, because we don't want you to be burdened at the end,
I used cloth diapers for both of my children, and we did not have a diaper service in Columbus, and it was a special act of love.
All
Can I
right.
contribute one? Can I contribute? There is compostable diapers.
Okay, there you go. That's a final word on that. Thank you very much to our panel for participating with us. Gail Baugh, author of the Fashion Designers Textile Directory, we appreciate you being with us.
Thank you. Love to be here.
Here in studio, Gargi Badori, PhD, Associate Professor, Kent State University School of Fashion. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And Lisa Goldsand, founder of Circular Thrift. We appreciate it.